Um, so we have a quorum,
Mhm.
and it is 7 o'clock. I think we'll start. We're recording.
Mhm.
I'm terrible about doing that,
Starts recording right when I start the meeting, which is handy.
and I'm responsible for that. Okay, this is the September 17th meeting of the Bristol Planning Commission. It is 7:01, and we'll call the meeting to order. Item 1 is review of the agenda for addition, removal, adjustments of any items. Does anybody have anything that they?
I'd like to add this at the end.
Okay, actually, I think I have a spot for you.
Okay, that's fine.
This is for the planning zone administrator position reports and that stuff.
Communication,
Yep, we do have that.
Good.
Underneath old business, because I heard there was some discussion about that. And that you had homework that you did. I would like to move. And 5C, discussion, select board hearing and proposed zoning changes. I would like to move that up. I guess underneath old business. I don't know if it's new or old business, so we will move it and it will become 3B. It is billed as a discussion. And I think we should keep it that way as opposed to making it an action. Because it wasn't warned as an action. And if there is any fodder that comes out of that, we can decide if we want a meeting before our next one, or if we've got time to make it an action at our next meeting. So I think that's it. Public comment, we'll open up for public comment. We do have, can you introduce yourself?
I can, thank you. My name is Ron Dentis. I live on 13 Garfield Street, right around the corner. I am one of the Bristol representatives on the Regional Planning Commission. And I just wanted to come. I've been on the Regional Planning Commission now for 6 months. I've been to 6 meetings, trying to figure out what's happening there. I'm just starting to get my feet wet, and I just wanted to come and introduce myself.
Okay,
I'm not sure if there is any communication that should be going on. I'm not sure if there's anything that you would like me to be doing when I'm representing Bristol at the Regional Planning Commission, but I'm open to hearing whatever I can do to
Great.
give assistance.
do you have, and you spell your last name DENPIS?
DAS.
DAS?
DAS. And it's @gmail.com if you'd like to contact me for anything.
Are you at the first home on the south side of the street as you go down?
I am 13, so it's 3 doors down from Smoke and Lotus. The White House with the blue trim, right next to Ted's property.
Right next
So
to
you-
Ted's, south of Ted's. Or
White House
west.
with- Yes,
Okay.
yes.
I live right around the corner.
So you bought the Dingler's
Los
house.
Angeles.
Okay.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
Now we know.
That's what I should have said.
So, yeah, it's great that you're here and interested in coordinating that. Sometimes, we certainly don't want to act in a vacuum, and sometimes it doesn't seem like we have a lot there. One thing that comes to mind is I could add your name to the distribution I do
Great.
for an agenda.
Great.
If you're interested in that, and then you'll at least see what we're thinking about.
Fabulous. I just got my first committee assignments, and I'm on the Housing and Economic Development Committee.
Okay,
I am recently retired, and my work back in my professional days was I did health improvement by looking at factors that cause sickness and disease. And planning and how towns are set up and how they're walkable and how they're connected are incredible influencers of health.
Mm.
So, I saw this connection to planning and, my passion for improving health. We can't rely on the healthcare system to improve health. I think we need to rely on our community to maintain improved health.
The other thing that comes to mind, I'm not, you may or may not be aware of it, but we spent, what, 18 months, 24 months, hashing out what is called the village planning law, which is mostly.
Yeah.
And those zoning changes that we made are, have gone through a hearing with us, and they are with the select board. Select board's had a few hearings, things have changed through their hearings.
Mhm.
They're scheduled for another hearing that we'll talk about tonight as well, so.
And I'm certainly interested how, Act 250 and 687 impact your plan, which I thought was a really good plan.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, so we will go to item 3, which is old business. Item A is action to develop recommendations for the planning and zoning administrator position for the select board. And then I think you had homework, Fred, and you've brought us some paper.
Well, yes, we were discussing that there's no really formal communication and reporting by the zoning administrator, and what reporting we had was verbal and kind of off the cuff. And according to our former zoning administrator, I don't know that things were ever memorialized in paper, and I came up with some thoughts that hopefully would not put the zoning administrator in doing a lot of paperwork and reports for us, which I would not be in favor of, but would be something that gives us a sense of what the heck's going on and how busy we are, or how less busy we are, whatever the case might be. And I'll look at that in a minute. And so I came up with these ideas, and I thought I'd put them on paper, rather than just wing it. With the goal being to better understand the administrator's work, getting information, having something for the select board to see. Even maybe it's valuable for them when they appoint people, and reappoint people, regardless of who the administrator is. So there's no real pride of authorship in this for me. It's a question of what you all think. Is this a good start? Is this too much? Is this good? Would you like more information? And if AZ is amenable, she may look at this and have some suggestions when she thinks about it. She might even expand upon it. I don't know how easy it is, It wouldn't be hard to create some kind of a sheet of paper so that she could easily, keep track of what's going on and why things were declined even, or how many village applications are there versus town applications. It's stuff like that. But we don't know, I don't think now. We don't really have a sense for that other than through conversation, how it's going. And I think we should have something.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, what I was planning to is zoning permit reports that I made for the meeting. But I also agreed that I could give a more in-depth report. This just simply covers. This covers building permits that have been put into NEMREC and approved. There have been no denial of zoning permits, and this is from August until now, maybe July until now. So this is just something that NEMREC you can do in the system there. It punches out basically all the information that I punch into it. So parcel number, permit number, owner and applicant name. It has a description of what's going on, when it was applied for, if it was granted, the fee was paid. And it has the certificate of occupancy. For all of them, they say pending. But that's just for most of them, they won't have a certificate of occupancy until the project's finished. But I thought I would prepare this for y'all and see if this was a good start. Or if there's more you want to add.
So what, I don't know, anybody have any questions?
I was just looking at I just go to the last one, it says permit type building. Well. I don't know whether 640 hardscrabble is gonna be a single family home, or whether it is one and they wanted to put a porch on or something.
There's a description under the owner's name and applicant's name that also has a location
With that stuff you have.
on here. Under the owner's name, applicant's name, there's a fourth column or that has a short description of what the permit is for.
So it's for the single family.
Yeah, it would be for a building for a single family. home.
Building for a single
Yeah.
family home.
Yeah. It's kind of got a page before it has building and then underneath it says detached
Yeah.
garage. So
These
that
are-
would be-
All right.
These are all building permits. The other paper is all other types of permits that have gone through except for appeals, which there is not a function for that in NEMREC yet.
I think it's great that Caleb's got to get a permit for treatment.
Yeah, I mean, it was bigger than 64 square feet.
I guess my only other thing is, I just was curious how many of these went to the DRB.
These are ones that did not go to the DRB if they're granted. Any ones that have gone to the DRB. Actually, I haven't had any go to the DRB
Oh,
that are
okay.
building permits, that are building permits.
That are building.
Yeah.
Okay, that's,
All these are ones that have been granted by me and have already been sent out.
Okay.
But the other page is ones that are referred to the DRB, it's subdivisions, a conditional use, and, which is actually a waiver, for some reason, it shows variance and waiver when I'm selecting it, but then it only switches to variance, but I made a note in there that it's a waiver application. And you'll see the conditional use on that got denied. That was Jody Bartlett was looking to add used car sales to his auto repair shop. He's in RA1, I believe. Yeah, RA1, and that is not a permitted use. So when he applied for it, I denied it, and he's now in the process of appealing my decision. Awaiting a hearing date with the DRB. The other subdivisions are all either awaiting sketch plan review or Joel Bouvier's subdivision is on final plat review.
Yeah, no, this is good information. It's probably more information in my mind, first glance, than what I think we were looking for, in the sense of having all of the details in it, but the number of building permits and what kind of buildings they are, that's definitely relevant and helpful information. Even the date tracking to see that, all these were within a
Yeah.
week or 3 weeks or whatever.
And I think there's a way I can also put the application, like when they apply, so you can also see if I'm like. How quick the turnaround on is on permits too, because for the most part, I try to have it pretty quickly. But there's some where like, the waiver application. I didn't get to his permit right away because I was checking the flood elevations of his parcel, and then also had to start the waiver process, since he didn't meet setbacks. So situations like that. But I can also, I'm very willing to like write up a actual report as well. Because I feel like these give a big picture, but there's some like smaller things that you wouldn't see in this, such as appeals, the processes that are going on there. The conversations I have with people, not everyone comes in and submits a permit, a lot of people come in with questions. So I can kind of write a report based off that, if that makes sense.
At the end, I said, that input from you would be appreciated, and then that's what that would be, I guess.
Yeah.
You're dealing with the fourth kind of situation that's appeared three other times in the last few months, and and it's a quirky thing. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Us knowing about that, you sharing that, would be good.
Yeah.
I think it's a question just having a good conversation and us getting some good sound facts. And yes, how much detail, a little bit more is better than a little too little. But I also, again, want to be cognizant of the fact that you're not a 50-hour week employee. And I don't want you to be doing a lot of paperwork instead of the zoning work that you're hired to do.
These reports from NEMREC are really easy because I have already put all this information in the system when I'm processing the permits themselves. So when I go to create this report, I'm just simply pulling the information that the system has already. I'm not saying it doesn't take any time, but it's very efficient, and I think it would be a good way to keep communication between y'all and me going. And these are also for from June, I believe, is when the,
So it'd be
I mean,
like,
July.
it's like a quarter almost.
yeah, I can do like a 3-month report.
Is that a 3-month report's better and easier for you than doing it more frequently?
I mean, either way, I feel like the amount of permits that you guys go through every meeting might be less if I do it monthly, like with every meeting. And that way, but we can also like do quarterly. I'll think on it. I'll think on it.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some things, I'm sure there's seasons. I don't know how many applications we get December and January versus,
Not a lot.
March and April. I don't know, but I would guess it'd be busier.
Yeah, I think right now it's honestly is gonna be the busiest time because everyone wants to get out and build things.
Before it snows. get
Before it snows, exactly,
If they can find someone, maybe they already have some.
yeah,
I think something like this is good if it takes such little effort, such as just deciding when you want it to report from and to and exporting. I think that is very sufficient to not create additional work. There's always more. If you want to look at data, there's always much more you could create by categorizing and breaking it down and trying to get it more into the minutia of it. But
yeah, more.
I think this is sufficient, apart from there's probably not a way to track zones or areas or something like that all of these are for. That would be the only thing that would probably be helpful for us to see in the long run where development and trends are in terms of like zones or areas of town and things like that, to make sure that the zoning is in
There might be able,
appropriate for that, or if there's
I might be able to do that, NEMREC, the system is a little finicky, so I try not to mess with it too much in order to avoid it crashing on me and losing data.
oh yeah,
In the hunt for more data, I don't want to lose more. But I'll see if I can mess around with the reporting system and also just like coding to get it displayed. I know it's an option when I'm filling out the permit forms. But I'll see if there's a way to get that.
That's kind of the only
Yeah.
other thing I was thinking of, is just being able to see what zone it is without.
Sure.
That's a good point.
Is this a good start for what we were talking about? You think?
We have Melissa and Bill, have you been hearing, have you got any comments?
They don't have this, but.
Oh,
Well,
yeah,
it's up.
You might want
Oh, there it is.
zoom in a little bit, so it's
Yeah.
readable on the
This-
screen.
this isn't, I actually don't have.
Oh, you're
these.
not sure.
These were just printed directly from NEMREC. I did not get a chance to keep them as PDFs, but I will scan these in. And then send them out to the planning commission. So, yeah,
That was really the only question I had is, getting the information sent.
yeah.
Yeah.
I can do that tomorrow.
I'm also curious, since you've been doing this for some months now, how you like it, how things are going.
Hmm.
Are you finding working with our citizens a good thing?
Yeah, I would say overall, I'm very much enjoying this role. I was working another job that was actively sucking the life out of me, and it made it hard to enjoy anything. But I've since left that job, and this job has been much more enjoyable and definitely a lot to learn. And I've been learning a lot over the 3 months, 4 months that I've been here. But I don't want to go running to the hills, and I actually enjoy being here. Yeah.
What was the other town that was sucking the life out of you?
It was a bar
Was
in
it-
Burlington.
Oh, it was a bar, okay.
Yeah. I work as a bartender part-time. Yeah, yeah. But
We're a little different than a bar. Depends on the day.
And you'd speak up to us if you had issues, wouldn't you?
absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I have no like. Nothing has come up in working here where I'm like, I don't want to do it anymore. I even I've liked my commutes these days because it's so gorgeous. So even like the hardest part of getting here, which is the drive, is enjoyable. There's definitely moments where like I'm going through learning curves where I'm like, oh man, I don't want to mess up. But I think that's natural in a new job. Yeah.
So a couple thoughts I have is, so I'm looking at this report and it goes back to, what did we say, July or June?
July.
July, to me, yeah, to me, that's a lot of information to get at once, so. If there's not if it's not burdensome, which we talked about, I think a monthly thing would be beneficial. I do like the fact that building permits, which is pretty much permitted use, and then DRB work, I guess you could call it, is on another sheet. And the other thing I think, and you can always talk off these sheets, you know, particularly if we have a monthly printout using that as a model, you can certainly talk off those sheets and talk about any of the little anomalies that,
Yeah.
you know, we've sort of raised as issues, but they're kind of hard to pigeonhole. So,
Yeah.
I don't know what anybody else has strong opinions about that or not.
I agree. I can, with the keeping building permits versus DRB separate, I think that just also makes sense because there's so many more building permits than things that go to the DRB.
Just don't get lost. They don't get lost in it. Good. So what do we do next? And we've sort of walked down a path with these reports. Everybody seems happy with that format.
I'll get the reports to people on Zoom.
Okay.
I can probably do them tonight actually before I
Yeah.
leave.
And once you know, maybe the thing is once I send out the report, you can just grab that and forward your information.
Yeah.
For the agenda or whatever on a monthly basis or whatever we work out to me.
And I think there was a request, if it wasn't too forward, to identify the zoning district.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have that written down.
Okay.
I'll see if I can mess around with NEMREC, but if I can't do it in NEMREC, then I can start including it in the Excel file that I also keep. With the permits. And that's just kind of a backup data storage. It has pretty much the same information.
Just easy to back up.
Yeah, it's also easier to back up. NEMRIC is where I go into more detail about like frontage and acreage and housing units and all that. But the Excel has all the important stuff like parcel ID, permit number, application date, grant date, all that. So no matter what, I will get you the zoning districts.
Maybe we can.
Yeah, like we said, we're not trying to make anything burdensome and create much more work than.
I'll let you know if it's getting to be more work. This is good so far. I was able to do all the DRB ones, I had to put them into the system and then also create the report, and I did that in maybe 45 minutes. So,
Okay,
Great.
yeah.
Thank you.
good. So the next thing is I moved the select board hearing on the proposed zoning changes up into old business. I had started out just with an advisory that they are planning or walking down the path to have their public hearing 10/14, October 14th, which would be in time, and I'm not so sure it might be backed right up against the requirements to warn a ballot for the November 4th election. I didn't realize it, and I don't know if I wasn't paying attention or if it just went over my head or what, but I was reviewing the latest revision of the amendments to the URD, which I sent out to everybody yesterday. Was it yesterday? Recently. It didn't go out with the agenda because it was
Is it
something.
this one?
Yeah, so it was something that I kind of come to grips with after the agenda went out. We had we talked with, we talked to select board, anyway, we had a discussion about setbacks for ADUs versus buildings. Accessory buildings, yes, accessory buildings versus. And we had, as a planning commission, recommended that they move the accessory structure setbacks to coincide with the building setbacks if they were going to only allow ADUs based on the main dwelling setback requirements. They reviewed that and chose not to accept that recommendation. So the way the bylaws will stand is there will be a setback requirement for a accessory dwelling unit that is not as restrictive as a building. Kevin Brown maintains that you can rule on accessory dwelling units using the main structure setbacks. And if the accessory structure does not meet those setbacks, you can't use it as an EDU.
I'm trying
Um,
to find the page that'd be on.
So
It was
would be an HDR.
HDR. Yeah. And I think Village Residential was the other one we were talking about as well.
Yeah, and to a lesser degree,
Village mix.
VR, was it VR or VN?
Yeah.
VR. HDR, this one right here. So you can see they have kept those the same. And when I sent these out to everybody, I also sent the excerpt from their minutes rationalizing, which I can send to you. And we can pull that up if anybody has a question about that. So I guess at this point, they are looking for us to respond to that, which I have mixed feelings so they're looking for us to respond to that if we so choose.
Little in the game.
Well, I almost didn't catch it.
I'm not clear as to what we had recommended after quite a bit of discussion, as I recall,
Mhm.
and to 15 feet or what was it originally?
It was originally, you can see that the accessory structures setbacks for HDR were 10 feet. As opposed to the 15 feet side and rear yard setback for a principal structure.
Okay,
And so we had opted to make those the same at 15 feet
that's right.
in hopes of avoiding
problems in the future with accessory structures that were going to be used as dwelling units that were 10 feet back instead of 15 feet back. That if a structure, a dwelling structure should be 15 feet from the property line, then any accessory structure that's going to be used as a dwelling unit should be 15 feet from, that was where we ended up on that.
And they wanna keep it the way it is.
They want to keep it the way it is, and their rationale is that by increasing that setback for accessory structures, there's a issue that you could be driving a whole lot of stuff into non-compliance. That is just a plain old accessory structure.
Meaning stuff that's already built.
Yes,
Well, then who cares? If it's already built, it's already built,
well,
right?
you don't
That's-
wanna-
It's grandfather.
you don't want to increase non-compliance.
No, it's not automatically grandfathered and waived, right? It's there, it's not like they're gonna have to take it down, but. They wouldn't have the rights to do things with it. That they would if it was. Within the proper setbacks, so now you're saying it was in the proper setbacks, but we're changing what that is, and now it's not.
So someone who builds a garage that's 10 feet, but then decides to turn that garage into an ADU. Would be out of compliance. Essentially.
And they wouldn't be able to do it, and that's what we were talking about, was they would have to go through a waiver process to do that. It wouldn't be a by right at that.
But someone who has a garage and then there's an apartment upstairs, under old rules, they're not impacted at all.
It would be non-compliant at that point, kind of like the non-conforming duplexes that exist in areas.
So they wouldn't, if they continue, so they would not have to shut it down.
Right.
If they ceased using it as that for, I think it's a year, or is it 2 years?
I'm not. I think I'm-
But there is a time frame where if they cease using it for that, it is,
Forfeit the use of it.
They
That would-
wouldn't be able to go back and change. There's a change of ownership.
And I don't know if change of ownership, if you can continue the use, if it's not conforming, I'm not positive on that, I don't want to speak to it.
seems like you could.
And they were squirrely about all that. They want to keep with what we've got. Basically, is what you're saying.
So I just sent you let me see, I sent you. And so the select board meeting excerpt. And I don't know if you want, if you're sharing that or not, but that is basically. From the meetings, number 8 is basically their discussion.
Who was the gentleman again that was,
This is Ian Albertson, he's on the
I
select.
know what Ian, but who was the one that was making the argument about the?
Kevin Brown,
The town's attorney was
Yeah,
the one that came in and
Right.
talked with us about it originally.
he's also the
Right.
chair of the DRB.
Yep.
Yeah, so Kevin Brown is town council and he's advising the select board. Among other things on. Changes, whether they make sense or not to the. I'm personally, I don't know if I agree with his interpretation, but. Of setbacks, but I'm not an attorney, so. Anybody have any discussion or burning desires to do anything with this?
From my point of view, there's consequences to both of them. And you're gonna face them down the road, no matter which way you go. You're gonna face consequences from either one. So it's which one do you want? And which consequence do you want to deal with?
And the other thing is, as far as positioning is concerned, the select board does have final say,
Yeah,
Right,
so.
and this is for the high density village area, basically, for lack of a
It
better
would
word.
be HDR, and then the other one is
VR, the village residential, which was what we just extended down along Hewitt
Right,
Road,
right.
Lover's Lane. Yeah,
But
and
the
we
lot-
talked about making that the same, for the same, under the same reasoning. That if we're doing it here, we should clean up this other zone and have it be the same to avoid. That same problem we're trying to avoid now, let's fix it over here too, if we think we need to fix it.
But the density in this area is not as problematic as HDR.
This is half acre
Yeah, it's
zoning and HDR is quarter acre. Even though I see that they made a suggestion to increase it to 5 dwelling units per acre
So that would be for duplexes.
for duplexes, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So residential, single family would be the top line. The blue would be for two families.
And then village mixes, the other one that, I think those were the same. In that one, but that's the other high density. One that just got up to 4, and those setbacks were the same in that one. That was not separated out.
Okay, we'll move on. Pull my agenda back up here. New discussion, new business. So I sent out, or did I? So we had chewed on what we, felt would be important to work on after we finished the bylaw grant monetization activity. And it didn't gel housing, period, but it gelled into a lot of aspects of housing. So I'm kind of thinking that's the way that things will be going. Couple, I thought I had attached, but I guess I didn't. I thought I had attached, the little summary sheet of where we were with our discussions the last time we left this, which was several months ago. The different ideas about housing and whatnot. And I'm not seeing that. Did I send it out?
Recall.
Here's the chair notes, the agenda,
Yeah, so then.
draft meeting minutes.
Yeah, no, I didn't send it, so I guess. The thing that, a couple things that are going on with this is, I had talked to. Jessica Teets, who is a Middlebury College, political science professor. And, she's also on the select board. I don't know if that makes a difference or not, but. She had her classes in another class related to political science. Doing some surveys last spring regarding housing in Addison County. So all of a sudden I'm thinking, well, as we go and start looking at housing, whatever that gels out to be, townwide, as opposed to being restricted with the village planning area. If there's something that we can take advantage of her classes to do some research, I guess you could say, sort of an intern sort of arrangement. So that's kind of hanging out there. We had originally talked about her meeting with us tonight, but she's got a library meeting and it looks like library trustee meetings are third Thursday, so I don't know if we're gonna ever meet up with her, but she had relayed that she's got some students that are interested in doing independent study that could probably help us do some things. As to whether she integrates it more formally within her classes or not. So I think we need to start thinking and maybe we need to do a meeting somewhere that's more conducive to her schedule. And kind of start brainstorming about what our vision is for housing, continued housing discussions. And what she can offer through her students to support that. And I mean, some things that come to mind, I mean, we've talked about, well, where's our density? You know, today, and where do we want it to go? Maybe that's a great data exercise for them. When they did the Addison County housing study, if you will, that they did, they broke it up into qualitative and quantitative activities with 2 different classes. And one class did a lot of interviewing and that sort of thing to get the pulse of people, whereas, and I'm not as familiar with what the other class did, but they probably went and looked at numbers and where the deficit is and where the opportunities are and that kind of thing. So that is going on. I don't know if anybody at this point with very generalized has any sort of comment or thoughts to forward with that.
Just resend that to you, so it's at the top of your list. It's back in August.
Ah,
I think any chance we get to leverage any sort of analysis like that we can get, that will help us make informed decisions. That's great, especially if it's a reduced funding cost like that, so.
yeah. And I think we have money for consultants or consulting. It sounds like a lot, but it's not. And so one of the things, and I should be verbal about this because I'm thinking is we have a period of time that we can kick the tires, flounder around and kind of gel this stuff and discuss this stuff without and have a lot of things, I don't know if you want to call it develop, but clear before we need to hire somebody to help us modify regs, if you will. I don't, hopefully that makes sense. AZ and I were talking briefly, and they have a interest in getting more and more involved in planning, and maybe some of these aspects they could take care of with either students, or maybe some of that is something they can work into, you know, the regular schedule, you know, as far as building, you know, lot densities and all that kind of stuff too. So there's a resource there as well that as we kind of go through this, I don't want to say flounder, but as we develop a philosophy, if you will, you know, we've got a couple avenues for help.
Yeah, I'd actually be interested in doing that kind of research. And I do have a desire to go full-time in the future, if that's a possibility. So if that happened, I would have even more time to devote to planning aspects of the job instead of focusing mainly on zoning.
Am I just talking in circles, or is there any sort of?
Well, I'm trying to get, I guess, a clear picture in my head of the objective. We went through for some months a revision of several zoning areas to make our zoning more friendly for higher density residential stuff, yeah? And that's huge. What exactly, and what exactly does one visualize that the planning commission could get involved in that moves the needle even more, assuming we wanted to? I mean, I remember this myself, because I was the one that suggested it, about expanding some of this outside of these districts close to the village. And there wasn't much appetite for reducing acreage and allowing for density much outside, close to the village. And I think without changing the nature of the village quite a bit, you've got to go there. And I think it would permit more development on the Plank Road, going up the Moncton Road, not infinitum, but to a certain degree, and in a way that's affordable. If you got 1 acre zoning, well, shit, pardon my French, you need a lot of money to get the acre. So that's not affordable at all. And it's not developable, I don't think, by someone who wants to put a 4-unit place there. I'm not sure how that would work. But those are the things to me that would move the needle a little bit if you want to see more affordable type housing, is to go beyond the areas where we already permit a fair amount of housing, which we kind of do in the village.
I think that's a lot of the fodder, Fred, is when we did the bylaw grant modernization, we were restricted by the grant to look at the village planning area, which is essentially the village. If now that we've completed that, we've got the ability to start looking at the town and seeing, and not negating what the desire, the way the state's trying to mold things into, high density areas for development. Look at everything and think about some of that stuff, and it may happen, it may not happen.
If I could put my 2 cents in, the idea of having these interns, or possibly me, do the research and the data on density, is to find those areas that already have populations. Like I think about the corridor down near the general store on 116. There's already a lot of people there. There's like communities there, there's offshoots off 116. So if you do a density study, maybe you can find another area that could be like a mini village planning area, where you want to say, hey, this is not quite the village planning area, but we want to encourage development here because there's already development here. And how can we like inspire that to grow? If that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think when I said flounder, it's not a good description, but I think there's a time that we can have a lot of that discussion and not, quite frankly, waste the consultant's time listening to us and come up with some sort of an understanding, if not a consensus about what we want to drive, and then you can have a consultant come in and tell you the best way to drive it through writing up some zoning changes. So, and I think, well, I better not I opened it up again with that. Stay tuned, more to come. The other thing that probably is worth mentioning, I don't think it does anything for us personally, but there was a recent Act 250 exemption for developed areas.
Yeah, Bristol's not, we pretty much, I really looked at the map and looked at all the areas we've already talked about, or areas we've already.
Already done, yeah, so
This is the exemption area.
it is. So it doesn't do, that's why it doesn't really do, so what they did is, because we have a downtown area, they swung a half a mile arc around that area and said, any Act 250 development in that area, if it would otherwise require an Act 250 permit, doesn't need it.
Right, I really should have swung it this way.
Yeah, so unfortunately, it doesn't go towards our growth areas, but
No, I might have 1 or 2 people that.
nonetheless, that has been out there, and I think in certain areas, not statewide, but not for us, is beneficial. But just to let everybody know that there is that type of activity going on at the state level.
It's all very exciting.
Anything else? Yeah, so this is. And if you zoom out, like that blue in the Haven, is that another one?
That's New Haven.
Yeah, but that's the same thing.
It's slightly different.
It's, yeah, I think they have,
This is the smaller town, they're probably the
Quarter miles and a half mile.
Mm.
So is this an exemption for new permits?
Anything,
Act 250 doesn't apply, or is this?
so if there was a activity in that pink square circle around Bristol. That would drive an Act 250 permit, it's waived.
New permit. Existing permits within there still apply and
Probably.
valid.
Yeah.
yeah, so this is the unlimited dwellings in downtown centers. And then Heinsberg, maybe it was Heinsberg, just used the 75 dwelling units in Newtown, or it was Stowe. Or Weinberg. But a town recently just used the 75 dwelling units in Newtown Center to get a really big housing development going, and they were able to. They didn't have to go through as much Act 250 process to do what they're doing.
Middlebury might be in that condition, but the zoning, the work that they're doing just outside of the city, I think it's Washington Street, I get confused.
Yeah,
It's like
Middlebury.
250 units.
Yeah, they have a lot bigger area.
Summit, I think is the developer, I think it's Summit. It's the colleges behind that. In terms of making it happen
Mhm.
and helping with the money.
The nice thing about this map too is that it shows the flood hazard area, which is a big thing in my permits, but also for any future development, I think any future zoning is gonna have a big impact on
Makes sense.
the folks here.
Okay. Any final comments on that so I think I will talk with Jessica. I think we'll have the same conflict as I alluded to. And it's gonna be quick turnaround, but we may want to do like a first Tuesday meeting or something like that. Instead of a third Tuesday, so we can accommodate her. Next item is, there was a discussion from the Hazard Mitigation Plan Update Steering Committee about the communication tower. There was a discussion about doing one at the firehouse, but there's since been some second thoughts about that, and there are other areas in town that are being identified, even though they're on private land or they're on private land that can be permitted for a tower, and they may be more attractive. So I don't know if you've heard any more about that
No,
discussion or not.
Other than my message you, just to
Right,
remind myself
yeah.
to bring it up, is that they were talking about, that's where they wanted it, and it wasn't gonna be able to go there because it wasn't zoned for that.
Mhm.
And that was probably gonna come up on our radar.
Yeah, so there was some discussion as to how we as a planning commission / zoning writer would deal with that if we need to. So I think, and that was from Valerie, so she was saying, well, let's step back and hold off on that a little bit. So I think we just need to know that group that Shannon's part of is looking at doing some improvements to communications.
Yes, as part of that, the other part of that discussion came up was the gravel. And nobody wanted to touch that one.
Did you do that again? Say
The
it.
gravel, town of Bristol's gonna run out of gravel in about 2 years.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
where we're getting it from,
No,
even though we're sitting on piles and piles of it.
There's an illegal gravel pit out on Upper Meehan.
That's why nobody wanted
I
to.
even know.
Just saying.
It's interesting. We're talking about housing and new ideas, Kevin. And yet someone putting a 3-acre gravel pit somewhere raises all kinds of holy hell. Or towers somewhere. So sometimes I think the planners in Montpelier can do their magic and focus on high density and this, but when the rubber meets the road, how you get things through so that people can accept this in their backyard, whatever is exceedingly difficult. And that's why I think going outside, I think the state is all wrong. I've said this for years, when I was up there, I said this, if they're having to keep everything so central, I thought they were making a big mistake. They were making things very expensive. They were making it so that only the nonprofits with grant monies and whatever are able to develop anything there. And they're ignoring opportunities that's available on the fringe. But it's just been stuck in my craw for years. Everyone in the state wants to do something and then they don't, but they don't want to deal with the issues that arise in the areas that they choose.
Actually, the telecommunication tower is on my radar as well, because the zoning regulations don't really have a place that 100-foot radio tower would fit for permitting it, or kind of for following any rules. There's stuff about telecommunications towers for like official government use, but if the idea is to put it on private property, if that's one of the ideas that's coming up, how do we permit that? That's something on my radar that was brought to my attention, and I wanted to bring it up to y'all because I'm not sure how to permit it.
The fire department qualify as official government use.
It's a municipal building, I don't know.
Maybe it requires a certificate of public good, because then that sort of pulls it out of the town's hands and puts it up to the state level. It's CPG. It's the thought process. I don't know if it requires one or not. I just know that CPG was an issue when we got ours and people weren't feeling like they had input. Because once it gets to that level,
They don't.
they don't care. That's how solar ends up where it ends up.
Okay, so let's move on to administrative matters. We have a couple months of minutes to review and revise and approve. Those were sent out, so hopefully
I'll print some copies right now too.
does anybody feel like they need a copy?
Well, if you just scroll through it, I did not read through them.
So this is
All full disclosure.
July 16th. I don't know if you want me to scroll up or anything.
Although it doesn't say Chris Pearl was there, he wasn't there for that meeting, you were. Staff person.
June.
June or July?
Yeah,
This is
June.
Oh, this is June, okay.
Yeah.
You've been officially hired?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that happened in the July select board.
Okay, good.
It happened. It did. Pretty sure it was July. July 23rd.
I don't think I was at that meeting, but my name is up there.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure I missed that.
Well, she-
Looking through it. Yeah, I did not make that meeting, so that just needs to be changed.
Can any of these be approved if not everyone that was at the last meeting is here? I know it's a rule in the DRB that the members that were present at the past meeting have to approve the next meeting, but I was just wondering if that's the same.
I think we usually have people that don't hear abstain, but
Yeah.
we haven't been very formal about it.
Yeah. Cause you can't not approve minutes. Minutes is minutes, it just,
You can move to remove Melissa's.
Yeah, you can-
Melissa's name
you can,
removed.
You can,
yeah,
it's a chance to modify them. Tradition has it you vote to approve, but you are just basically reviewing for accuracy.
mhm.
Gotcha.
So we removed Melissa from the June 18th.
Yeah.
Meeting. Okay.
This is just a PDF, I don't.
So that's something you'll communicate back with Carol, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, I'll reach out to her when I send her the video for this meeting, just letting her know that the June 18th. Needs to be updated. Was there anything from the July 16th?
So we've,
I did,
okay,
That's the one you ran, right?
yeah.
That one's smooth.
so entertain a
What
motion, motion to accept them,
Well.
both
Second,
months. Entertain a
oh,
motion.
motion to accept both meeting minutes as amended to the June 18th, for those present.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Raise your
Aye.
hand. Okay, passes. Now that we have already discussed, so I don't know if we got anything more, Shannon, about updates from the hazard mitigation plan.
No,
Update
it's pretty-
steering committee,
It's
It's gone.
boring. Not a lot, I mean, there's a lot of discussion about what the date, updating it with the hazards, nothing was new was presented really.
so how far along are you? You think you're halfway, quarter
I
way?
think they had planned to put them out, no, more than halfway, I think they plan to put them out for public comment this month.
Oh, wow,
What was the date on that? I may have missed, that was probably the meeting I missed, because I had a photo show. I can't remember there.
no, it's fine.
Yeah, we had another meeting, and they were gonna go out for the update. The public meeting. And for select board, hopefully a select board meeting, as part of a select board meeting, I guess they wanted to do it. But there's not a lot of things that have changed. And most of the discussion was the mudslide or whatever you wanna call it, that happened on,
Lincoln Road.
Lincoln Road.
yeah.
Mhm.
It's around that.
Okay. We moved item C and I've already done that. The next one is the updated capital improvement plan, which again, I didn't attach the most recent one, but, I think that has been presented at the June,
July.
July meeting, and I wasn't here, but I got the impression there wasn't a lot of commentary or.
It was pretty, it seemed pretty early phase at that point, but, you know, good framework from what I can recall.
Yeah, and I think. Seems like we would not have a lot to say until we started working on the town plan. And there is a section in the town plan that talks about that capital and how that all lays out and make sure that the town plan's aligned, and if it isn't, what changes. So I understand that there's probably not a lot of fodder to talk about there at this point.
Adobe's crashing, but we'll continue.
Okay, and then the last thing is miscellaneous correspondence. It is attached, I did attach that stuff. And there's some commentary in the chair notes, and that's all there for your perusal. Not sure if anybody's got any questions or comments about any of that. I'll just leave it up to you to go through that at your leisure. So we have another opportunity for public comment. I noticed, Ron, you had your hand up at one point.
I just had a comment about the map. We covered this at the regional planning committee, and the pink symbolized downtown areas and the blue were non-downtown areas.
Okay,
Sorry, I didn't.
not a problem. Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, and with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Fred,
Second?
Rob seconds. All those in favor? Say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Good. That's good. Any abstention? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Yeah.
everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Where's?
I didn't know it was ready.